Chapter 19. Things had moved faster than Hollowman had originally indicated. The capital had indeed already been moved. The construction had been secretly completed, and the administration had already installed operations there. The new White House was located on a small peninsula situated at the confluence of the Corpus, Christi, and Oso Bays. Ward Island, once occupied by Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi, was now the center of federal power. What once had been the Miramar Apartments, a complex that housed university students, was now an enclave of modern office buildings known collectively as the New Jerusalem. The relocation of the capital was intended not only as a major physical change, but also to symbolize significant legislative and policy transformation as well. Taking advantage of supermajorities in both houses, Everhart called an emergency session of Congress, and with the sweep of a pen, he signed into law the most extraordinary tax bill in the history of government. He called it the Jubilee Income Tax Bill. The law was based on the principles set forth in the Old Testament book of Leviticus. According to tradition, the year of Jubilee was a time of new beginnings, and in keeping with that spirit, all debts were forgiven. And so it happened that every tax-paying citizen instantly became a debt-free American. Yet while the bill abolished the income tax, it replaced the government funding tool with a compulsory national tithing system. In the new system, instead of paying taxes into the U.S. Treasury via the Internal Revenue Service, Christlanders, as citizens were now called, as well as businesses, were compelled to annually contribute 10% of the value of all their earthly goods to the Treasury of the United Congregations of Christland. A charter was created to establish the Bank of Christland as the successor to the Federal Reserve, which was also abolished. Through Galori's Jesuit relationships, the Vatican Bank was persuaded to increase the contribution of its vast gold reserves from $20 billion under the Fed-controlled economy to $3 trillion under Everhart's Bank of Christland. Galori also called on the Rothschilds to influence European central banks to underwrite further reserve support to shore up confidence in the new economy. Contrarily, Angus Kellogg wasn't worried about the strength of the economy, so long as the strength of the military remained intact. Galori was more circumspect. To further hedge his bets, Galori had made large buys of cryptocurrencies. Since transactions in digital money had no need of banks and were therefore difficult to trace, he'd conveniently forgotten to mention these transactions to Everhart. Such was the state of the Union when Everhart met with his inner circle in the new West Wing, a.k.a. the Upper Room. Although most of the bureaucratic buildings in the New Jerusalem were reasonably accessible, the Upper Room was far less so. The sanctum was housed in a 50-foot-high steel and glass pyramid that sat atop a 40-story executive building at the center of the complex. It was protected by camouflaged anti-personnel weaponry and surface-to-air missiles, while its exterior was layered over with hyper-reflective cloaking material that made it virtually invisible. The massive suite provided a 360-degree view of the island, encompassing both Corpus Christi and Oso Bays. To penetrate the upper room was essentially a black ops mission. Entering through the main administration building, Hawk was led by keepers through a maze of doorways, past sensors that measured his breathing, body temperature, and heartbeat, while lasers scanned every pore of his body. The passageway that led to a concealed elevator was made of continuous sheets of a mirrored material that had no apparent seams or openings. He couldn't tell where one something ended and another began. As they exited the elevator, he was surprised to see a contingent of heavily armed keepers guarding the landing. The landing existed for the sole purpose of dissuading any intruder from gaining further access to the building. After disembarking the main elevator, they entered an access lift. There was no direct route to the upper room. You had to go through hell to get there. Hawk wasn't sure why he'd been summoned here. In the wee hours, keepers had shown up at the trailer and ordered him to get dressed. He'd been airlifted to a municipal airfield where he'd boarded a private plane to Corpus Christi. The access lift came up through the floor of the upper room, and Hawk stepped off into splendor and anxiety. Without a word, the keeper saluted the men in the room and disappeared as the floor closed over the opening. Hawk didn't know if he should be worried, but he was. Did Everhart know about his conversations with Booker? He was about to find out. Good to see you, Hawk. It's been a while. Everhart's greeting came with a smile. If the smile was intended to put Hawk at ease, it wasn't working. Pleasure's mine, sir. The view was impressive. From this height, the expansive land and seascapes gave him a feeling almost like flying. But it didn't put him at ease. Everhart noticed the discomfort. No worries, Lieutenant Colonel. We just want to hear your thoughts on the efficacy of your programs. How do you see things going? Hawk knew it was more than that. That conversation could have been had over the phone. He tried to sound confident without overselling it. Program's coming along great, sir. He looked to Kellogg for validation that wasn't forthcoming. Construction's having some challenges as regards bedrock depth in the far north acreage, but we're still on schedule and under budget. Everhart offered Hawk a drink, which he readily accepted. Not what I'm asking. How's our prison industries enterprise program doing? Hawk took a sip of the cognac and steadied his tone. You're aware of the strikes. And why are they striking? Hawk still didn't know, but he wasn't going to say so. They're afraid. Of what? Of you. I mean the ghettos, sir. Everhart wanted to know what they expected to gain. When he heard himself say, I don't know, sir, the phrase bad answer instantly rang in his head. Angus Kellogg picked up on it like a psychic. Wrong! If you don't know, you damn well better find out. Who's in charge of that program? I am. Not for long if you keep not knowing shit. Angus stood up and walked over to Hawk. His face clouded over like Tuesday in Seattle. Make no mistake. You're gonna go right back to that camp, and you're gonna root out every stinking shit shred of insubordination everywhere you find it. You're gonna wring it out. You're gonna stomp it out. You're gonna beat it out. And when that's done, you're gonna see to it that the same thing happens at every other federal institution in the system. Angus stepped close enough for Hawk to feel his breath. You're gonna crush some skulls. I want a body count on this. No way the monkeys don't run the zoo. Next report I get about inmates not working, I'm coming there myself, and nobody wants that. At that moment, Edric, Everhart, and Glory also stood up. All three men towered over Hawk, who remained seated. Everhart posed a pertinent question. You have any problem with this? Hawk did have a problem. If he was ever going to quit, now would be the time. He wanted to get up and walk out, but his gut said not to. No, sir, he lied, wondering if his smile appeared too forced. Everhart's eyes conveyed consequence. I want to know everybody involved in this strike. Everybody. I want names, and I want them 2 weeks ago. Yes, sir. I'll get to the bottom of it. Segregation units are already past capacity, sir. A trace of apprehension colored Kellogg's tone as he turned to Everhart. I've ordered transport to the agriculture districts, but, Everhart raised an eyebrow. But? It was the first time Hawk had seen a chink in Kellogg's confidence. Kellogg tossed back the remainder of his drink. There's talk that if the prisoners are forced into labor, they'll revolt. I should think that'd be right up your alley, Angus. That's the thing. Other than the keepers, no telling who can be trusted. At this point, there's a high probability of noncompliance. There are sympathizers throughout the ranks. All eyes instantly trained on Hawk, who blurted, Then we send in the keepers. He'd said it on instinct. He didn't know what else to say. Anything less would have been construed as disloyalty. Gallore's reaction surprised him. We can never jeopardize California. It's literally a gold mine. The annual tithes alone are worth billions, and the natural resources are, I don't know, what's the phrase for? You can't spend it all. It's not called the Golden State for nothing. Hawk was starting to feel better when Kellogg added, I don't like you, Hawkins. Far as I'm concerned, you're not team material. Keeping his seat so as not to exacerbate the situation, Hawk asked, What's that mean? That means your ass is hanging in the wind. And if you know what's good for you, you'll find a way to pull your pants up.
We don't carry dead weed around here, son. Not the convicts and not yours. This is not a drill.
Kellogg's intended intimidation merely reminded Hawk of every coach or drill sergeant he'd ever known. He reacted as he always had. Inwardly, he brushed the words off, while outwardly, he appeared to accept whatever was being said.
If you can't get the job done, then it falls to me. And when it gets to me, I got the shit that'll get butter from a duck. And you are looking more like a duck than a hawk to me.
Galori, as was his custom, interceded on behalf of civility. Laying a hand on Kellogg's shoulder, he soothed. Now, Angus. I'm sure Lieutenant Colonel Hawkins understands the situation. Father William Galori's soft tones were again in contrast to his words. He knows if he fails his given task, it's not you he has to worry about. It's the keepers who should have his attention. Hawk couldn't believe it. These motherfuckers were actually threatening him. This thing had turned into blood in, blood out. He couldn't quit if he wanted to. If he didn't do what they said, they'd kill him. It was a fact he'd never considered. Everhart slowly swirled his cognac before draining the glass. I'm the only one any need fear. He wasn't the same man who'd been recruited by the C Street group. Power had affected him in uncharitable ways. His instructions left no doubt about his mounting psychosis. You go back there, and you tell those mongrel bastards it's time they all understood who their real fucking Jesus is. It's me, goddammit. I'm their Jesus. I'm the only one who can save them.